Welcome to the third webinar of the Launch Formula series. The objective of these sessions is to share our commercialisation roadmap and allow you to understand the stages and steps that you should follow when commercialising your innovative idea, product or service. It is our aim to give you the tools and insights needed to minimise the risk associated with bringing your innovation to market. And we know that statistically that more than 80% of innovations fail, and it's our intent to improve the success rate for all innovators. In our first webinar, we highlighted the importance of understanding the market and specific need of your customers. In our second webinar, we highlighted the need for early conceptual thinking in how your innovation will impact the market and your potential customers. But I'd like to begin this session by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet, and I pay respects to elders past, present and emerging. I'm your host, Marcus van Vugt, and today I'm really excited to introduce my fellow panelists as we get down and dirty on the use of data science tools that significantly improve understanding of the market. Linda Ginger is the owner of Attractor, a company that focuses on go-to-market strategies. Additionally, she's a keynote speaker and on the board for a number of private and public entities. Welcome, Linda. I'm also joined by Emma Haller. Emma is an independent, data-driven customer experience consultant who will provide us with great insight into using human-centered design and customer experience in solving problems in our digital world. Welcome, Emma. We have some time at the end for any questions from the audience, so please use the chat function to lodge your questions. Now let's get on with it. We can then see Linda. Linda, why data science and not traditional market research approaches?
Well, thank you, Marcus, firstly for inviting us onto the launch formula. And it's a great question, but it's easily answered. And I guess for the last 20 years, I've been helping companies. Markets are now global. They're rapidly changing. And so for business to successfully innovate, innovators need to have rapid tools at their access so they can get global market intelligence. And so, you know, the traditional approaches that served us really well up until now, but they're really out of date. So we want as close to real-time intelligence as possible, such as who's in the market globally. And we know how important it is to know who our competitors are. You know, what is the customer experience and how can we meet that? And I guess looking at where should the priority be, because there's always competing priorities. And how can we get that focus?
Let Linda deal with her technology issues and I'll go back to Emma. So Emma, how does this data science fit into your world?
It fits really beautifully. So customer experience is all about obviously digital interactions and what data that we can surface to answer the problems. So whenever we're solving the problems for whoever the customers might be, you need to really fully understand what that problem is, who else is looking at that problem and how far have they got. There's no point in reinventing the wheel. There's standards that exist. So whenever we look into the competitor market, Linda will show shortly that we can look at a global scale into the competitor market and see who the biggest players are in different scenarios for different topics that we may be researching.
Cool. So Emma, you raised a number of challenges. I might just ask you to elaborate on those. So the first one's really about, you know, who else is solving those challenges? How long do you go, you know, how do you look at that? How long does it take you to do that? And what information do you get out of that? What value do you get out of that?
Well, I find this completely mind-blowing because obviously traditional methods are quite slow, takes a while to get the results, hard to pivot. The methods that Linda has introduced me to through the data science tools that we have access to, not only can you get much more accuracy, but instead of a human search being maybe you look at 15, 20 competitors, we actually found over 15,000 competitors in the market that we were looking at for the digital identity realm for New South Wales government. But within there, we then look at and Linda's going to hopefully be able to show an example of this 3D model that comes up of the market. So you not only see the different points that you're interested in, but the competitors that are existing in the market. And one of the really large surprises that we had when looking at digital identity was that Apple was one of the biggest players. So Forbes had written that in the lack of governments taking leadership, commercial entities will take leadership with digital identity, which raises so many different ethical questions as well. So there we go. Linda has the video working. Linda, can you speak at the same time as the video, or would you like me to speak through it?
You can speak through it if I'm going to look correctly. What do you prefer?
You're all good at the moment. Keep going.
Okay, cool. So what you see on the screen is what we call a market galaxy. So we all know about galaxies, and we consider this the world, and we need bigger telescopes to be able to see the galaxy. Sometimes we're constrained by, I guess, traditional approaches that we can only see to the horizon. This enables us to see global competitors. And I know, Marcus, you asked us, how long does this take? So this example I've got on the screen, I'll show you in more detail. This took us 2 days to get it to the client. Now there's 15,552 businesses in this galaxy. So if you're launching a product, it's not 10 maybe that you have to navigate. You've got a lot to navigate. So just to give you a sense of what's on the screen there, you'll see the green clusters. These are market segments that our client asked us to explore. And you'll see as we go in, lots of blue dots. They're actually the companies that make up those particular market segments. So so you'll see there's lots and lots, and as we go in closer, we're able to see those names of the companies. Now you might ask, why are there larger looking companies? They're because they span, the larger the node or that blue company, the more they span. So there's one that I'll just show you here, which is the largest of all of the node, the blue companies, the largest blue node, because it spans 10 of the 12 market segments. And so if we look in here, Emma, you might want to speak. I think my video is going.
Yeah, so whenever
we're catching up,
we can see not only what the company is and being represented by a larger blue node, we can see in this example that it's Apple, but also then the 10 different market influences or areas that it is connected to. What this can then give, for example, the government is, well, that's already a channel where if you link into what Apple are doing and work directly with them, then, you know, we can't, as a society, is it ethical to let a commercial company own your identity, or is it the role of government, and what is the role of government? So that's the type of things that we look at whenever we're looking at this. We can see obviously who's competing in the space from a commercial perspective, and access to that, Marcus, to answer your question. That's literally just within the data science tools that Linda and the data scientists over in the States get access to. We overlay that with the questions we ask through internet searches as well.
Yeah, I was going to say, Emma, I mean, there's some actually Australian companies in this as well, and one well known that we all know within this little cluster called Digital ID is Australia Post. Now, it's one of the 1,200 that fits solely within Digital ID. But, you know, good to see that some Aussie companies are actually seen as being, you know, part of this great galaxy. And you'll see some of the names there coming up too.
okay,
So traditional market research would have had us. Can you hear?
yeah, go Linda.
Traditional market research, you can imagine trying to find those 15,000 and then being able to see how they're connected. And connected means that we can find who the incumbents are in the market. So the more connectivity they have across those markets, the more powerful they generally are, which is evidenced by Apple. So it's a fantastic tool to be able to get really ready access. And look, we can use this in different ways too. It doesn't mean just competitors. We can actually find channel partners like Apple, for example, or maybe there's some acquisition targets for organic growth strategies that companies have got. So a very quick turnaround. There's always, the client's always surprised. I'm sure you will have heard from your own clients how they say they're the only one in the market. Our government, gorgeous colleagues at the government, was very surprised to find so many here. And we actually found some that were other government departments, didn't we, Emma?
We did.
That they could easily approach and go, hey, well, what's not? It's a quick way to get access.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
If I could just add to that slightly as well, I think something incredibly interesting out of that project was that for the whole of our engagement, it was over a period of 4 weeks, Linda and I, they actually had a traditional approach happening at the same time with a full-time team of 8 resources, and it took them 6 months. Now, we did come to the same results, but it just shows the power of data science and actually getting to the results quicker and being able to pivot along the journey as well.
Well, knowing you, Emma, you would have put a deal together so you can benefit from the savings that they made, right? You also mentioned, and the thing that raises in my head, how do people get started? How do you start? You know, if somebody comes to you, the department says, you know, there's about 10 companies or whatever it might be. How do you go about doing that?
So Linda, can I take this one? So normally, we actually have such a logical starting point. So Forbes has identified that 93% of online experiences start with a search. So where better than actually starting with search engine queries? Google also tells us that the majority of searches that they're seeing these days are longer, so they're 4 words or more. So we're actually starting to get more insight into what people are looking for. So if we can look within a particular target area, so digital identity in this stage, and we did brainstorming session to break that down into different topics as well. So we could look into passports and the types of identity and how people relate to them. And we were able to get not only what people are looking for, but what answers are they seeking. So whether they're looking for just some information to come back, whether they're looking for an eligibility criteria, whether they're looking for something geographical. And here we have some slides as to the different queries that came back from looking for digital identity. We have here, if you look very closely, there was the number of queries. Sorry, the number of questions was 96,397. But if you actually escalate that into the number of actual individual searches that were made, that's 743,000. So you're getting the sentiment of 743,000 searches to inform us as to what the problems are, what information people are seeking, or what convenience are they seeking, or what are their frustrations, or what are their workarounds as well.
I think what was important with this one, Emma, was they wanted to enter a digital identity solution, but they didn't know where to enter that into. By looking at all of the identity categories, we were able to see quickly that passports offered the greatest opportunity versus some of the smaller markets of digital ID. And it was interesting, Emma, you might want to describe even some of the language we found through the internet queries. They had a different thought about what people were talking about. So this enabled them to really change and pivot their communications as well to understand that.
And a really interesting insight from that engagement was that people don't see identity. They don't think of it as identity. They think identity is your passport or your driving license, whereas that's actually an authority to do something. So using the words identity to communicate with citizens would either need a large campaign to increase awareness or pivot to use some of the language that people will identify with through the channels that they identify with.
Okay, so again, the next stage to that, how does that actually relate to customer experience? So, you know, if your passport is the highest search or the highest question, how does it actually relate to me wanting to get a tax file number as an example? What's the linkage? The
linkages are within, so tax file numbers, not part of digital identity, but really if you look at the different aspects that came back from the digital identity, we were able to see which areas people were seeking information for and what they were seeking. So we actually trended the types of queries across all of these to break it down into what might be the initial starting document or process to create a digital identity. So we went on to, and Linda, I don't know if you want to go to the next slide. Whenever we have identified the particular areas that we want to focus in on for a particular engagement, then we do a workshop with the participants along the value chain. So everybody that would be from the very beginning to the end, so the whole ecosystem of an opportunity. This would be from an identity space, would be the issuers of the identity, the customer service team that deal with the public, the consumers of the identity, different businesses that need the identity for particular reasons, knowing what they need and why. We were able to get quite a lot of insight into all of those questions that would normally take a much longer period of time to get insight into.
Yeah, I think maybe think of it as a big funnel. At the top, and we're trying to get that focus by coming down, down, down. So what within the area of digital ID should we be focusing on? And some products actually can be searchers are asking for. So are they what questions, who questions, how much questions? It will actually help develop the product as well. Once we've decided the sort of market that we're going to go within, then we do, as Emma said, the opportunity mine, which actually is all about customer experience. So it's bringing the whole ecosystem or the value chain together that is involved in that problem, I guess you could say, and what need we're about to have a great experience. And then we capture that. And of course, we usually never have all the money or the time to be able to solve all of those things. So what we're then trying to do is to find what the priority area is. So we use data science to statistically tell us of all of those 54 things, which is what we're showing on the screen here. We found 54 things that the market wanted, needed, valued, cared about to have a great experience. But where should we put the focus? So in this image here, we're looking at the market for those 54 things is split into 4 areas. And they're always great to actually, pull apart and have a look why they've clustered them. Those things are looking at the margins of those things and saying that they belong together. But the most notable thing here is the connections. So the larger the node within this whole ecosystem is where you'll find that one thing, or maybe there's several, will influence all the other things. So if we can develop our products or develop our marketing keywords around those most influential areas, we by default will influence all the other things. So it's a fantastic tool as well. Internet queries, we're able to deliver back in 24 hours. That particular internet query search.
Sorry, Emma?
That's right. Some a little bit longer, as Emma and I have discovered. But this one, once we've assembled who's in the value chain, within 24 hours, you can have this ecosystem map that tells you what is going to have the most influence over the market.
And does this run in parallel to Galaxy?
And I'll just give you a quick rank. So out of that, we're able to then make.
Sorry, Linda.
I think Linda's voice has dropped off.
Sorry, Marcus.
That we have you back.
I was going to ask, do you run these tools progressively?
Did you say it all runs in parallel?
Yeah. Or is it a sequential
Well, I think
process?
it goes back to that funnel again. Yeah,
Right.
It is, because we really want to get the funneling approach coming down to go, okay, we had all of these things that we could have the things solved, but we're trying to come down and get that real focus in a really fast period of time.
Okay. Now, in terms, you mentioned earlier that, Emma, that your client was running a traditional research process in parallel. What what were the similarities or differences in the findings, particularly on this last piece where you're talking about the importance of particular aspects, right? And what's driving decisions.
They're almost identical. Was beautiful to see. I obviously wanted our research to stand out way more than theirs, but they actually did a really fantastic job, and our research really complemented everything that we're doing. They had a national view, and we gave them a much more international view.
Right.
So yeah, but we do have some really interesting insights into that. So thinking again of the funnel, so we've done quite a number of engagements with state government bodies, state agencies, especially in the customer service area. And there was a particular one where we were looking at a stage in life. So from birth, from conception to starting school, and the various activities that can happen there, and where would the starting point be to solve these different activities or frustrations for citizens. So obviously starting off really large with the bucket of, well, what are we looking for? And then bringing it down through the quantitative research and the internet questions, we arrived at some very high level topics, such as enrolling for school. So whenever we did an opportunity mine for enrolling for school, I was very sure, you know, being a mother of three, I kind of thought I knew what would be the outcome, but I was so surprised. So if everybody was to think about what you would look for whenever you're enrolling your child to school, front of mind for most people would be the academic results of the school. What we actually found was that it was more of the cultural fit and what was going to happen to the child if they didn't have any friends. What would happen if there was somebody bullying their child? How do they know that the child is going to get that personal care and experience and be nurtured through their schooling years? So it was very different. But we also found from that engagement that people obviously wanted a map. They wanted to know when open days were, what's in their immediate locations, what's the eligibility criteria, and then bringing that into a journey was actually the definition of their minimal viable product.
So how did that, that's a great example, how did that influence how your client, which I presume government, went to market with? What sort of approach did they take to overcome what you would have thought was the original intent behind it, right?
So what sort of approach did they overcome? Sorry, could you?
Yeah. So how did they go about influencing their own product development as a result?
Oh, yeah, well, we tied it back to their strategy and the remit. So obviously, state governments are not involved in passport, but passports are one of the largest things that people identify with identity. So we look at closing that gap and who we can collaborate with and where, how we can try and move people's gauges slightly. But to actually go out to market, they're more focused on what they're needing. They're much more aware of what the deliverables are going to be and the value that those deliverables are going to add. So the actual process of going to market is a lot easier to get through a procurement process because you actually can start to see the results immediately and start to see, well, okay, we started off with this large chunk and we can see exactly what that funnel was in a really short space of time and how we got to the focus area and what problems it solves from where we started.
Okay. So
I think it's fair to say to Mark,
go, Linda,
that having statistical data in the way that we're delivering it is probably much stronger from a business case perspective than having the traditional approach in market research. So I think that was one of the other key things that the strength of what we were able to do.
Okay. I might just open it up to the floor for any questions that people might have. Nothing's off the table, so I encourage you to challenge both Emma and Linda. Any questions? There's a prize for the first question.
I think Trevor's got one.
Trevor doesn't count. No?
Okay, I'm going to ask a question that I've been asked quite often then.
Please.
So often I get asked why. So Linda obviously has access to all of these amazing data science tools, and she has partnerships with a number of organizations, including Vivo, myself, and Gary Schmidt as well. We focus very much on the social enterprise and government space. And a lot of people wonder why, because obviously there's probably much more money, or, you know, it might be more exciting in some other places, in some other areas, some commercial organizations. The reason for doing so is that this country has given so much to me, and this is like a real patriotic statement, but this country has given so much that since I've been here, I'm very driven to help society. And Linda feels very much the same as well. So everything that we do is to make a difference to more people. So we're proactively communicating now with governments as well to say, look, this is what we've done elsewhere. We can really help you to get that focus and make sure that all taxpayer money is spent in a really productive way that's then linked back to the problems that citizens are facing.
Have you applied it to any non-for-profits? Any experiences there?
Yes, we have. We're trying to apply it to more. We do find that not-for-profits do need probably more help because their budgets are much less, and their hearts are always in a really right place, but they may not have that data or digital background that a lot of larger organizations and even government would have. So yes, we are very focused on any type of social enterprise that does need some help to get its focus and make sure that they're really prioritizing all the dollars that they have and answering those big questions. That's our audience.
And I might open it up to Trevor, for those of you on the webinar who don't know who Trevor is. Trevor is the Managing Director of Vivo ICP, who, as Emma said, has access to these tools. How are you finding the positioning in the commercial market, both for startup and established businesses, Trevor?
Well, I think the first thing to understand is we ourselves are disrupting the commercialization consulting space. As Linda and Emma, indicated, the traditional way of doing this sort of research took months and months, and often, a lot of money, because it was a very manual process. So what we're finding, particularly in the mid-tier space and also, corporates, is that the market itself is actually still learning and adjusting to the fact that this can be done. And so that is typical under disruption strategy, whereby we're actually ahead of the innovation curve, and the market is still even becoming aware that we can do these sort of things. So what we're finding is, and we're in the stage ourselves of moving, from the early adopters, which were companies that we specifically approached and had an inkling that they would be, receptive to the use of these particular tools, have produced very specific outcomes for them. And that has then led to them going, okay, wow, now that we know that these sort of tools are available, they're actually, coming across to accepting that there is an actual formula to getting this information, assessing it, and actually finding the right market segments to enter. So that has now led us to start to move into the early innovators, and that is about identifying those in the marketplace that are already attuned to accepting data science as a very rapid way of getting that initial data to then assess what does this marketplace globally actually look like. And then by utilizing the opportunity mine and particularly getting into understanding what are the jobs to be done, but out of the jobs, what percentage of the market is influenced by those particular jobs. So, in answer to your question, Marcus, it's a game changer to the way that we actually approach taking innovative products and launching them into the marketplace, where we know statistically more than 80% fail, whereas now we've actually got the tools that increases the probability because it influences the market entry strategy.
Cool. Thanks, Trevor. Now, Patricia's put forward a question. Now, Patricia, I'm happy to read it out unless you want to.
No, if you'd like to read it out, that's fine.
Okay. Patricia's new to this type of digital data gathering. She's in the energy sector and advises on renewables. It is a complex subject. Very few consultants are providing the services. So trying to understand where, just quickly, potentially we could see them provide value in answering some of those questions around renewables.
Yeah.
Thanks, Patricia. Linda, any thoughts? Obviously, the market for renewables is
probably just a little bit more detailed. Yeah, it is a very growing market, obviously, and particularly complex. What specific? I guess it comes back to that you're wanting to solve.
I guess it's what I don't know that I can't solve. 30 years in this space. I've owned my own company. I now work for another company because I sold it. It was acquired. Now I've moved on and I've joined a company that trades in the energy market and the environmental certificate market, as well as advisory. Very few are doing it. And I'm just wondering how your platform could get our message out quicker, and especially as we've got a major change to our company towards the end of next year, the end of this year. So there's going to be a major announcement, and I'm just thinking, does the digital platform, will it be able to get our announcements out? Would you use it for an announcement could you penetrate that group, the galaxy?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. So yeah, so you're looking for, I guess you're wanting to get cut through with your organisation.
Yeah.
And leveraging what's announcement that's coming out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So we can use the galaxy to go, who is your market? I mean, most people say there's not too many out there, and you might be surprised by how many there are. That would be my first comment.
Yeah.
And how to navigate that market and actually have a real point of difference that will help you get that cut through.
Yeah.
So we can use the galaxy just not by looking at competitors, but we can also start looking at, where the investment market is maybe, or what channel partners you might use to get access to your end users, because it's still not quite clear who the end users are, but that doesn't matter. We can get more detail, just sort of giving you a bit of a metaphor about how
Sorry, as Linda's there,
I
think
it's breaking up there.
Yeah.
sorry, internet questions as well to try and get to the hearts and minds of what people are interested in.
Yeah, if I could jump in there, Patricia, I think one of the things that Linda was probably trying to get across was that, first of all, understanding, yes, the competitive nature of the marketplace would be very, very beneficial. But then as Linda was just about to go into, looking at the different market segments of who your potential customers are. Are they corporate? Is it wholesale? Is it a retail?
Everything.
So that's one of the things that we know that if we're developing innovative or disruptive solutions, whether it's the business model, piece of technology, or something like that, we're looking to actually enter the market in a very tight fashion. So rather than going, everyone's our customers, in order to get adoption, which then you can build through a process which starts to go into the launch formula itself, we actually analyze the market. And as Emma was talking about, through the opportunity mind, the internet questions and so on, we can actually really fine tune and say, this market here is resonating with they have problems that are resonating with the solution, the innovative solution that you have, and they are more probable to adopt your offering.
Yeah.
And that is so important, because many innovators who believe everyone will want, need, and value their product take a marketing strategy which is shotgun. Whereas what we want to be is absolutely finitely targeted to, first of all, just get adoption, learn what are the benefits that those clients are receiving from your innovation and so on, build a marketplace, stay away from the big, powerful incumbents. So we're literally stealing their low-end clients, which they don't care if you do that. But yeah, basically in general, it's about using the tools for the research to then really fine-tune your market entry strategy and nail that, to then keep moving up the chain, improving your offering, and then expanding your offering out to all those other sectors that you're talking about, but done over a period of time.
Yeah.
Yeah, well put, Trevor.
Hmm.
I think Ian, similar to, and I think Trevor sort of covered some of that, the question outside of startups and existing businesses, it's identifying the question to be asked. Okay, questions asked and answered. Very good. Thanks, Ian. Covered it off. So I'm just reading back. We've got possibly time for one more question for our 12:45. First and last, going. Well, thank you all for attending today. And I look forward to having you on our next Launch Formula webinar, which will be on the 12th of October, Wednesday the 12th. And we look forward to seeing you and hearing from you at the time. We'll be talking around more of the contents of the business case and really about what's driving the valuation and financing of good ideas, and how do we get better oversight of what needs to be in the business case, so you have a better chance of getting funding and getting a bit of value out of your investment. So thank you all very much. Thank you, Linda. Thank you, Emma.
Thank you, Mark.
For partnering today, and look forward to seeing you all very soon.